Friends, please come in. Come into our circle of friendship. Enter this space as our Unitarian Universalist congregation of Grand Traverse orbits the universe. Welcome to all in our sanctuary and to those who are streaming online. I am Margaret Wozniak, a member of your Sunday Services Committee. In today's service, we examine the question, why do we set aside 1 or 2 hours on Sunday mornings to join with each other in this common endeavor? What is the value of church anyway? I thought I'd check out some church billboard signs for possible answers. The first one said, "What could this sign say that would get you here on Sunday morning?" Another said, "Now is a good time to visit. Our pastor is on vacation." And lastly, church, cheaper than NFL tickets. So let us enter into this service. Why attend church? Enjoy our prelude.
Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. I'm Reverend Alex. I'm the minister here at UUCGT. I use he and him pronouns. And I'm pretty sure that we've all come here because we know that community is important in our lives. But just in case some of you are not quite sold just yet, I hope that you will settle in and find for yourself a spiritual home and place of rest with us this morning. As we gather together, let's begin with these words from the Reverend Dana Warsaw. Often people say they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they are getting at, and I know they aren't quite getting it right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see me in my goodness and dignity, who also see my failings and foibles and who still love me. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of the Spirit. And I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. And so come, let us just be with one another this morning. Now is the time in our service where we light the flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, a flame that affirms the fire we feel for love and justice that we feel when we are gathered. Margaret has lit our chalice, and I will share these words. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and in ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting their chalices. As we light ours today, let us remember that we are a part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, truth, and justice. And now let us sound our singing bowl from the Buddhist tradition and call our awareness to this present moment together. And now I'll invite you, as you are willing and able, to rise in body or in spirit as we join in singing our opening hymn, number 121 in your gray hymnals, the hymn We'll Build a Land. We will only be singing verses 1, 3, and 4, and our music director, Anne Marie, will lead us.
Where the oil of gladness and song
Today's offering words come from Reverend Victoria Weinstein. Every week in our church, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it is through pledges that we build our budget and fund our yearly programs and ministries of worship and religious education, pay our staff and professional leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our buildings. And we know that we could easily submit those pledges to the church at any convenient time. But we pass the basket during the worship service to make a communal expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at the most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. Our baskets have one side for the work of our congregation and a side for the needs of the wider community. The offering will now be given and received in gratitude.
Now is the time in our service where we get to hold an opportunity to draw near to one another and to hold those things on our hearts that we know must be held when we are gathered together in community. Those things that for any one of us feel too much to carry just on our own. If you have a joy or a concern that is a bit too tender to share with us out loud in our service, you're always invited to reach out to myself, to reach out to our congregational care team. Barb here is wearing the stole of congregational care, and so you can always go up to her, this beautiful rainbow stole, or you can simply just hold it on your heart as you just abide here in the love that is felt right here. None of us is ever meant to travel life's journey alone. We now just have a couple of joys and concerns that have been offered up for us to hold. Together, we hold on our hearts the people of Lahaina in Western Hawaii, who are facing the deadliest fire in modern history. From Mike Radke, a joy, celebrating grandkids visiting, Ada and Ellis from California, and one-year-old Nora from New York City. Also celebrating daughter Heather doing a book reading, but a backstory, tomorrow at Horizon Books. So please go check that out. It's fun to get to say but from the pulpit every once in a while. And now, let us just hold a brief moment of stillness as we center ourselves and hold all of those joys and concerns that are in our midst that are not forgotten. And as we settle in for a time of meditation and prayer, let us feel ourselves draw near to one another with our very breath, closing our eyes if we feel comfortable, resting into the seat beneath us, feeling the ground beneath our feet. And let us now join in taking a couple of deep breaths together. Taking a deep breath in and out. One last deep breath in and out. Let us feel this moment of shared groundedness together. The feeling of hearts beating and bodies breathing as one. The companionship of holding our intentions within this sacred space, this sanctuary, this beloved meeting place. Let's not forget this feeling, this moment of interconnection, of deep listening, of care for one another and for our wider world. We are in a world that so desperately needs more of our communal care and concern. Let us pause for a moment and offer our cares for the things that are most present on our hearts, even if all we do is nurture this seed of compassion within ourselves for just a brief moment. Go ahead and offer your cares to the world. May this time we share move us beyond our thoughts into action, for we know that our prayers are not really prayers if they don't change us and call us into new ways of living. May we always remember just how connected we are to one another, even in those times when we feel the most alone. May we always widen our circles of care to embrace all who wish to join us in this journey of just living, compassionate caring, and humble treading. May it be so, and amen. Let us now join in singing our hymn of response, Spirit of Life, number 123 in your gray hymnals.
Today's reading is a portion from an article titled "The Misunderstood Reason Millions of Americans Stopped Going to Church," written by Jake Meter. 40 million Americans have stopped attending church in the past 25 years. That's something like 12% of the population, and it represents the largest concentrated change in church attendance in American history. A new survey of more than 7,000 Americans attempts to explain why people have left churches or de-churched. The survey suggests that the defining problem driving out most people who leave is just how American life works in the 21st century. Contemporary America simply isn't set up to promote mutuality, care, and common life. Rather, it is designed to maximize individual accomplishment. Such a system leaves precious little time or energy for forms of community that don't contribute to one's own professional life. Workism reigns in America, and because of it, community in America, religious community included, is a math problem that doesn't add up. What can churches do? What is more needed in our time than a community marked by sincere love, sharing what they have from each according to their ability and to each according to their need? A healthy church can be a safety net in the harsh American economy by offering its members assistance in times of needs. Meals after a baby is born, money for rent after a layoff. Perhaps more important, it reminds people that their identity is not in their job or how much money they make. Rather, it's in the fact that they are loved and protected and infinitely valuable. A vibrant, life-giving church requires more, not less, time and energy from its members. It asks people to prioritize one another. It asks people to prioritize one another over our career, to prioritize community care over accomplishment. The problem in front of us is not that we have a healthy, sustainable society that doesn't have room for church. The problem is that many Americans have adopted a way of life that has left us lonely, anxious, and uncertain of how to live in community with other people. The great de-churching could be the beginning of a new moment for churches. We could be a witness to another way of life outside the conventional measures of success. Churches could model better, truer sorts of communities, ones in which the hungry are fed and the weak are lifted up. Such communities might not have the money, success, and influence that many American churches have so often pursued in recent years. But if such communities look less like those churches, they also might look more like the sort of communities we hope to create.
So it's been a while since I've started a sermon off with a few good UU jokes. I bet some of you are going, ooh. I had some luck the last time I told you a few good ones, and well, you didn't throw me out, so there's that. And so since I'm still here, how about we hear a few more good UU jokes? Are you ready? All right, don't say I didn't warn you. For the members of any religion, to have a few doubts is normal. To have many doubts is a crisis of faith. To have constant doubts is just being a Unitarian Universalist. Was that a good one? You want another? How do we know Jesus was not a UU? Because if he was, there would have been 24 co-disciples. Looking at all of you co-chairs out there. I'll stop soon, but I've still got a couple more for you to groan at. The next one goes, they say there's an old familiar UU hymn about why UUs gather. Anyone know what it is or how it goes? No? Okay, no guesses? The hymn actually goes, we gather together to gather together. And there is more on this one later in the sermon, but anyway. All right, I'll give you one last one, and then we're done. Thank goodness there are Universalists in this crowd. You're all so forgiving. That wasn't the joke. Last one. Did you hear about the UU version of baseball? Well, if you didn't know, instead of 3 strikes, you're out, UU baseball is 3 strikes, you're special. It's kind of cute, isn't it? When you're a minister, you've got to have fun with the small stuff. All right, so you've had enough of the jokes for now. And as you know, jokes are such great things because they point at the things we share or even find funny about one another. You've heard me say that before. While we're often fairly different with our backgrounds and all of our faith journeys, we UUs can find and laugh at the things that we actually do share in common. The feelings that, even as unique as each of us is, there are some things that even we UUs do share in common. And so this Sunday, we're thinking about why it is that we gather together. Not just the things that we share in common or the opinions that we find that we generally agree on across our community. We're actually going a level deeper than that. We're wondering at the broader concept of congregations and church communities. Why is it that we gather? What brings churches together? And more importantly, what role does a spiritual community play in our lives, and why is this so important? Today, I will be making the case to you of why I really think that you should go to church. And I know that church is not a word that all of us use, though it's one that does reflect the history of our Unitarian Universalist forebears and our wider society. So if you hear church and church is a word that really kind of doesn't work for you, please translate that word into whatever word you can better access or feel comfortable with. Congregation, fellowship, meeting, community, sangha, you name it. I know what you're thinking. I'm a biased party in making this argument about going to church, but hear me out. I think there are a few good reasons to be involved in a congregation that you may not yet have fully realized. I know that not all of us are every Sunday churchgoers. Some of us even find a deep spirituality outside of church, in other community settings and going out into nature. And while there are many ways to spend your time on a Sunday morning, going for a hike or sleeping in or even curling up with a good book, cup of tea, there are a few special reasons of why you might want to go to church. And so let's dive on in. The first reason that you're going to want to go to church is that belonging to a spiritual community promotes good mental health. New evidence from a new NCBI study in 2021 found that people who had spiritual practices and leaned on their faith traditions regularly found an increased resilience. They also had reduced symptoms of distress and an overall emotional well-being that was better than others who didn't. And the study especially examined mental health outcomes following our COVID-19 pandemic, involving people from a variety of traditions and other faiths. What they found was that belonging to a community of faith brought with it a better ability for people to cope with distress and also process their emotions. Being a part of a community and leaning on their faith made it better for people to cope with the everyday stresses of life. And so that first reason of why you're going to want to belong to church, belong to a faith community or a spiritual community, is because it promotes positive mental outcomes. So that's reason one. Reason two is that there are not many other places in our lives to find intergenerational multicultural community. There quite simply aren't as many places or spaces where people of all ages, backgrounds, and walks of life actually get together in one room, one building, into forming a community of care and gathering each week. Where else are we going to find so many different types of people from generations and cultures and differences, all of our different walks of life? A perk of being in a congregation is that the authenticity of congregational community actually encourages this kind of dynamic gathering and meeting place. When we adults know the names of the children, when we take them seriously and we laugh and play with them on Sundays, we know that we're doing this part right. Likewise, when we are inclusive and welcoming at our best, our community is vibrant and encourages us to widen our circles of love and care more and more toward anti-racist, multicultural community. So congregational life is one of those last remaining places where you can even find community like this. Old and young, queer and trans, people of all races and ethnicities, even low income and well-off people, all of us get together in one room and form a community. That's pretty special, I think. Congregations ask us to meet each other and to create a community in which all of us are held. Thirdly, the reason you're going to want to belong to a church is that it just simply makes you feel good. Amen? How many of you relate to this feel-good feeling that you can get after a service is over, that positive feeling that just seems to propel you into the week? Any hands out there? Yeah? Resonate with that? I know for myself, there's a solid hour I actually spend just coming off this feel-good feeling. I sometimes have to be careful if I go to a grocery store after church or someplace like that, because I sometimes get minister's face, and you just kind of start smiling and making awkward eye contact with a lot of people. And funny enough, they start to look at you pretty funny in return with that. So no, it's okay to laugh, it's true. Attending and belonging can make you feel good, quite simply. And it helps us to keep up a steady routine where you can bookend your weeks and mark that beginning of a fresh new start to each week by starting it with your Sunday. And it may even give you something to think about or consider for the upcoming week ahead, a weekly theme or something to hang things on. I also have what I know to be quite a controversial opinion, and that is that I think that there is nothing quite like congregational hymn singing. I know it's not everyone's flavor. There's just something unique about this feeling of being in a sanctuary surrounded in music and voices and feeling like you are just held in the midst of everything. Congregational community gives you this special feeling, and it also helps you to spread these good feelings to others in return. In part, and that's a big in part, it helps to make you a better person. And so that's the last reason I have for you, that it makes us feel good to belong and to be in community together. Notice how I gave that very qualified in part back there. You don't always need congregational community. You don't even need religion, for that matter, to be a good person. I just want to make that clear. Many do just fine on your own, and perhaps even a few of you feel that way too. Though community does bring with it a sense of accountability, you are called to live into your values and are even expected to do so when you belong to a community that also shares these same values with you. Community gives us important opportunities to practice things outside of our areas and our comfort zones. It's a safe place to jump on in and give something new a try, even if we feel like we maybe don't quite have that experience. There's a permission to try something new and to see how it all works out without committing to something for life. So while you can join a gym or set up shop at your favorite coffee place, there is just something special that is not exclusive to spiritual communities, but is nonetheless vital for our spirits. We know deep down that we need one another. We always have, and our post-pandemic life and reality proves this more and more. In making the case for congregational life, I don't want to give you the impression that things are always perfect. Unfortunately, congregational life is more complicated than gathering together each Sunday and smiling at each other and singing Kumbaya. It just is. Congregational life isn't always pretty or easy, and sometimes it is just plain hard. I don't need to tell you some of that. From our reading that Margaret read for us on the reasons why millions of people don't go to church, we learn what goes wrong when we fall short of our hopes for all that our church could be. We create communities that are rooted in workism and productivity, communities where we measure our worth based on what we can do or even what we can produce. It's no wonder that millennials and Gen Zers are skeptical and have even avoided getting involved in congregations altogether. We have a lot of baggage, and we carry this baggage with us, and inadvertently, we reflect back that same toxic culture that we find in our wider society, that culture that we just know isn't right and we even want to work against. We end up emulating all of that. And we also ask a lot of people when life already asks a lot from us. We say to ourselves, how could I possibly hold or do more? Congregational life, when it's at its best, calls us to be another way with each other. It asks for and even demands a sense of communal care. It requires us to take refuge in the embrace of belonging and to provide that embrace for others. It calls us to serve not because we measure our worth based on what we can do or what we help out with. Funny enough, we end up wanting to serve one another because we know that others have been there for us too. We want to serve one another because we really do love each other and care. And that's what's unique about the bond, that shared covenant of a congregational community. This is not a bond based on how much you put in the offering plate or how many committees or teams you serve on, how many of those badges of honor of workism that you carry. Instead, it's based on our care and our concern for one another. It's rooted in the permission to unburden ourselves and to trust that we actually can be held in community, that our humanity and our humanness will be honored and seen, that we won't be judged by our perfectness or our lack thereof. Imagine what congregational life would be like if we truly lived into our community of care, where we loved one another no matter what it was that we contributed, that the love that we have for each other cultivates the trust that we know others will show up for us when we need it. Just think about the abundance that this creates, that sense of spiritual vibrance that people are deeply yearning for in this society. Friends, community is not just found. In reality, it is co-created. It takes two of us to tango. We build beloved community together, and your call for me this Sunday is to find a way to care for this community, to nurture this seed, this spark of connection that you find within yourself, but also to find ways to water the seed and to uplift the spark in others. I ask this of you not because you have to. Indeed, you don't. As good Unitarian Universalists, you can take or leave anything that your minister says on a Sunday. Though I ask this of you because I know that my life itself isn't complete without the same connection of the same sense of connection and care. Where would I be without it? We live out our call, our ministry as a church, when faith helps us to wrap our loving arms around one another and all of the pains that we carry in this world. We are at our best when faith and our love for each other inspires us to keep going, knowing that everything is not lost, even in a world that feels like it is going backwards. In short, we really do gather together, to gather together. Just sit with that for a moment. So to close, your homework is to find ways to make this community of care alive in some sort of way, big or small. You can try everything from joining a Soul Matters group to making coffee or treats on a Sunday morning, helping out with our buildings and grounds, or even just being a friendly, welcoming face on a Sunday morning. A face that somebody else might really need to see today. check in with each other, and find ways to know and be known. And if life is just too much or too overwhelming for you, simply just come abide and be. Be a pew sitter, that's what we like to call them, pew sitters, and just let this love surround you. Your value and worth are not tied to what you do or what you make. Congregational life isn't congregational life without community care. We need to make this love and care real as we gather together. And this is ultimately why we gather together. And this care, in turn, also helps us to care for our world. May it be so, and amen. I invite you now to pause as we rest in this moment of stillness. Let us now rise and sing together our closing hymn, number 1054, in your teal hymnals, Let This Be a House of Peace. Anne-Marie will lead us in singing.
I'd like to welcome all of you into a moment of exploration with me with this beautiful, haunting, and touching hymn. The verses I will gladly hold and carry for you. You are welcome to allow those words and melodies to sink and wash over you and join in with me as you feel comfortable and welcomed. Before we begin, I would like to share with you the two-part responses to each of the hymns that we will try together. There is a low part and there is a high part. I'm going to start by singing the low part, and then I'll invite you to sing it with me. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Now together. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Beautiful. Now, the higher part of the response, for some of you, as you may feel welcome, goes like this. Let this be our house of peace. Let's try it together. Let this be our house of peace. Now together, both parts go together like this. Ready? Let this be a house of peace. Let this be our house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be our house of peace. So once we finish the verse, we go into this response. I'll give you the signals, and I think you'll get the cue as to when to stop the response. All right? Let's give it a shot. House
The chalice flame has thrown a circle of light on our altar, symbol of our unity. As we extinguish it, may we carry the message of inclusion and the orbit of love during the coming week as we widen our circles of embrace. And as you leave the building, look for the billboard sign that says, "Now is a good time to visit. Our pastor has recently returned from vacation."
I'm grateful this isn't the community advertising that the time to come is when I'm away. So I think we've got a good thing going here. Usually in our service, we allow folks in the beginning to kind of, newcomers that are here in our midst to introduce themselves. We had a little bit of a slip and we forgot to do that, but we have an opportunity now where hopefully we have a microphone. Yep, the microphone's ready. We're just going to create an opportunity for those of you that feel comfortable rising and kind of introducing yourself. By all means, you do not have to, but if there are any newcomers who would like to introduce themselves, we would love to just welcome you with us this morning. So if you're new, if you would please just rise in your seat, and we would love to greet you and have you introduce and say a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Barb Olson. I'm visiting Sarah and Doug, and I also know Ruth and Tom, and I'm happy to be here. We go to UU together in Sarasota.
Welcome. Chris is getting her steps in today.
I'm Barb Bloomer, and I've been here before, but I've moved away. I'm back in town again. I'm retired, and of course I come back to Traverse City. So it's a pleasure to be here. I love this UU church. It's not as good as the one in East Lansing. It's better.
I think we might debate that, but yeah.
Very friendly church. It's glad to be here.
Welcome, Barb.
I'm Mike Stratford, and I've been here a number of times over the years, and I moved with my wife to Traverse City in 2011, and I spent 48 years in Mount Pleasant and taught at Central Michigan University Political Science for 30 years.
Welcome.
My name is Heather. I moved with my fiance Michael about a year ago into the area, and we're excited to. Well, we were excited to get to know the church earlier this year. I'll hand it over to Michael. No. We love UU, and we're very interested in becoming new members.
We love you too. This is a big Sunday.
My name is Ruth Winter of Ruth and Tom that Barb referred to, and I think we're perma guests. We come frequently. We participate in 3 different UU churches, but when we're in Traverse City, this is our church.
Oh.
So Ruth Winter and
I'm known as Ruth's husband, Tom.
All right, any other visitors here with us that would like to introduce themselves? All right. Well, that felt good. I'm glad that we could kind of welcome some folks into our midst. And so now, this is the part where I get to say to you that we get to get out of here and enjoy the rest of our Sunday. So in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, and in the spirit of why it is that we come to be here together, may we be made ready to serve one another and to create the world that we so desperately dream of. Go in peace all, may it be so, and amen. And our service is now at its end, and we're changing things up a little more this Sunday, and I invite you to enjoy some nice, soothing postlude music as you make your way out the doors to coffee hour. So good to be with you this morning. Go in peace and grow in love.